Hi everyone, Christina here. Welcome to another card video at my YouTube channel and blog. Today I'm going to be using two new stamp sets from Mama Elephant called Little Painters and Icon Letters. And I'm also going to be using the Brush Stroke stamp set, which is an older stamp set. And that's the one I'm going to start out with today. So the first color of ink I'm going to be using is High Dive from Simon Says Stamp, and I'm inking this up on this large brush stroke stamp, and I'm going to stamp it over on some white cardstock. This is Neenah Solar White cardstock, and right now I have it kind of in the center of my MISTI tool, but I'll wise up here in a minute and move that paper up to that top corner so that if I have to re-stamp it at all, that it's in a good position to do so. I wanted to mention that these stamps are stained by the color I've used previously. For this other brushstroke, I'm just turning it 180 degrees so that I can get the other end of that brushstroke, and then it looks like two different stamps. But this stamp is stained, and it's not going to transfer when I put on the next color, which is Hot Mama from Simon Says Stamp. It's going to be just fine. I wanted to let you guys know kind of a fact about stamps, and I actually learned this from Jennifer McGuire, but high quality photopolymer stamps or clear stamps will absorb the color of ink you're using, and you actually want it to do that because that means it's taking on that ink really well and you're going to get a better transfer to your project. So if your stamps are staining, it's not a sign of a bad stamp or anything. It's actually the property that you want in your stamps. So now I'm using a Sweet Nectar, or I'm sorry, Sweet Gelato from W+9. They have two different colors of ink, and this is Sweet Gelato. And I've moved on to the second really long brush stroke stamp in that stamp set. Once again, I'm turning that stamp around, and like I showed you before, it is stained because these are high quality inks and high quality stamps. And I'm going to switch the color to Sunshine from Simon Says Stamp. I'm going to ink that up and then swing that over in my MISTI and stamp that down. Now this pretty much completes the background for now, so I'm going to move on to that Little Painter stamp set, and I'm going to be stamping that onto some hot press ready cut watercolor paper from Strathmore. Hot press paper or hot press watercolor paper is a little bit more smooth than your regular cold press, so it's great for stamping images and then watercoloring over the top. So I'm glad I used my MISTI for this because as you can see, I totally missed one section. I somehow didn't ink up that little top section on the bunny. So I'm applying more VersaFine Onyx Black ink onto my stamps, and then I'll stamp this directly over what I've already done once more. This makes it really easy to get perfect impressions every time when you use a MISTI stamp tool like this. So I'm going to move on to the watercoloring on all of these pieces, and I'm going to be using my Kuretake Zig Gansai Tambi watercolor palette. This is one of my favorite watercolor palettes. I come back to it time and time again, and I wanted to mention to you guys that courtesy of jetpens.com, I have 3 of these 36 watercolor sets to give away to you guys. So head over to my blog. The giveaway is associated with today's blog post, and I will give you guys a week to comment on the blog post, and then I will post the winner over at my blog. I think I'm going to add a winners page at my blog, kind of like what Jennifer does, just because it's a little bit easier for you guys to just go back there and see who's won each giveaway. So I'll have links in the blog post to that page, and you can just watch for when the winner is announced. I've done really simple watercoloring on all of these images, and now I'm going to do a little bit more of a watercolor look up here on the picture that the bunny is painting. So I've added just some blue and kind of an aqua color around the edges, and then added a little more water in the center to give it a lighter shade. I'm heat setting these just to speed up the drying process so that I can continue stamping. I'm now using the Icon Letters stamp set and some more Onyx Black VersaFine ink to stamp the words "Love You." Thought this would be a great place to put the greeting for the card. So I've put down the coordinating dies that go with those images, and I've taped them down using some Post-it tape and then run them through my die cut machine. So I realized that if this was going to be a real scene, I needed to give the bunny kind of like a background to stand on so it looked like there was a little bit of a floor. So I've put some white post-it tape over a small section in the bottom portion of my card front, and I'm blending on some Distress ink in the color Pumice Stone. And it's just a really, really light blending. I didn't want a ton. And as I remove that masking tape, you can see that it gives it just enough grounding. So I'm placing those die cut images onto my project here, just placing them on top. I haven't adhered them yet. I wanted to get an idea of placement. And then I cut some small foam pieces, some foam tape, and use that to adhere the pieces down onto this stamped and blended piece. And as far as the palette and the brush, I also put those on foam tape, and I just positioned them so the palette was below the bunny and the brush was above. So I trimmed down this piece to be slightly smaller. The finished size is 4 inches tall by 5 1/4 wide. And ideally, you would trim that down before you do all the stamping and things like that. But I wasn't sure if I would want to do that later, so I didn't. I used some licorice twist cardstock from Basil for my card base, and I scored that at 5 1/2 to create a side folding card. Then put some foam tape on the back of my stamped and painted piece, and then put that down directly into the center of that card front. So that finishes the card for today. Don't forget to visit my blog for that giveaway. And thank you guys so much for watching. I will see you guys in the next video.